SE has really dialed this bike in for a very fun, very agile, very rideable, and definitely one of those bikes that you can train yourself again on how to do wheelies, how to do flatland, how to do endos. The bigger bikes are cumbersome, and if you can't get to that balance point, it's hard to learn wheelies this bike. So if you're struggling, if you were tired of sitting on the sidelines and just watching everybody else do wheelies, do endos, you know, do some cool flatland, think about getting one of these Savage Flyers, and you'll be surprised how your learning curve all of a sudden shoots up. Hey y'all, Bart from Bicycle Rider YouTube, talking about the SE Bike Savage Flyer. So this is a new bike that SE has put out. It's built on a 27.5-inch rim rather than a 29. Of course they make a 20, 24, 26. So there's a variety of sizes you can buy. But I'm finding most adults that are buying SE bikes and riding in the SE lifestyle, a lot of them are riding, you know, the big rippers, the big flyers, 29-inch adult size BMX bikes. They're awesome. They even have some a little bit larger. I like that. I am an SE dealer. I own Biloxi Bicycle Works. So I see a lot of bigger guys come in and their eyeballs pop out when they see a BMX bike and they just wish they could fit one. Well, they can. And they're so surprised when they get on, you know, one of these bigger bikes and actually fits them in it. Feels good and it's sturdy, and they look at it and they get into big wheel BMX, and I love to see it. But I'm not one of those bigger guys. I'm 53 years old. I'm 5'9" and I weigh 150 pounds. I am a lifetime cyclist. So I do race 29-inch mountain bikes. I race competitively. I race road bikes, and I race gravel bikes, and I race crits, and I do triathlons. I spend a lot of time on a bike, and I own a bike shop. But even me, when I first got my Fast Ripper, and I love that bike, I was so excited. I've got a video when I first unboxed that bike, and I just brought back so many good feelings, so many good endorphins, bringing BMX back in my life. And I figured, give me a couple weeks on that bike and I'm gonna be wheeling that thing down the road just like I see these Bike Life guys. I'm better than a lot of people, but not near as good as I wanna be. You know, and it seems like when I'm trying to learn wheelies and I put it on video, and I put a wheelie fail video out recently because I gave myself a 2-week wheelie challenge and I failed. I'm pretty good at wheelies, but nothing like I see some people are just in such control and do it effortlessly. And I'm finding those guys have learned the balance point. Those guys have spent some time and learned how to wheelie those bikes. And they can wheelie just about any bike once you learn that balance point. For people to learn the balance point, you have to get to the balance point. And to get to the balance point, I see people tell people all kinds of tricks. Well, you need a different style handlebar, or you need a different style brake so you can, you know, feather the brakes better, or you know, you need a different tire. I mean, I see so many people saying you need a different piece of equipment to get that wheelie down. When you look at it, the guys that wheelie can wheelie any bike. The bike I'm struggling with, the SE Fast Ripper. I love that bike. But I could put that bike in someone else's hands that knows how to wheelie, and they wheelie that thing magically, you know? So it's not, a lot of times it's not different pieces of equipment on your bike. I have noticed, since I'm smaller, you know, sometimes like an 8-inch rise, a bar that's not quite as wide, it is physically easier for me to pull up. But that's the key. Physically easier. The Savage Flyer is a little bit smaller, it's a little bit lighter, and it is physically much easier to get that bike up to that balance point. You can't learn the balance point if you can't get there. This bike helps you get there a lot easier. I know with my fast ripper, and even when I'm trying a big ripper or a big flyer, one of those bikes, one of the single speed geared bikes, it takes a lot to get that bike to the balance point. And that's coming from a veteran bicycle rider. I mean, I've been a Cat 1 mountain bike racer for years. I know how to wheelie a bike, you know, on a track, but you know, that controlled SE Bike Life wheelie is pretty magical. I can't quite do it yet, but I'm getting a lot better at it by practicing on the Savage Flyer. Like I said, it's just a little bit smaller. It is a geared bike, so it does let you pick the gear that you feel best in. Lets you play around and have choices of gear range. I do want a true single speed BMX bike. I don't know what gear ratio quite feels better, because, you know, sometimes I actually have to ride my bike. I have to ride it to the ride outs. I have to ride my bike back and forth to work sometimes, commute sometimes. I enjoy riding my bike. Having gears lets me use this more than just a trick star, just a fun bike to go to ride outs in. You know, it's cool when the more time you spend on a bike, also the more comfortable you feel on it. And when you have gears, you can really, you know, ride that bike in multiple purposes. And like I said, as you're learning, find the right gear ratios. I'm kind of dialing in the couple of different gear ratios I like, so I'm getting closer to having a 29-inch single speed bike. I don't know which one I'm going to build up yet, but I'm getting one. But yeah, the gears, a few pounds less in weight. The rotational weight of these tires, so instead of a 29, it's a 27.5 inch, 36 spokes, so it's a really sturdy wheel. So as you are learning BMX and as you're learning flatland or wheelies, and you come down a little bit sideways, these rims seem to hold up a little bit better than the 29s, just because the 29 is a little bit bigger and it does offer a little bit more flex, has a longer spoke. As you know, it just makes sense that a 27 is going to be a little bit sturdier. And with the 2.3 wide tires, the Kinepin tires, excuse me if I pronounce that wrong, but with these tires, it is enough tire to protect your rim. It's enough tire to air down, so you know, as you're learning and you're coming down hard multiple times in a night, it's not sending shock waves up your spine and your neck. And you can tell I'm 53, because when you're younger, you don't feel that stuff. When you're younger, you don't mind falling off the back a few times and hitting your head. That's one of the reasons I have a helmet right now. I'm 53 years old and I've hit my head a lot. So helmet's your choice. I'm gonna wear one, especially when I'm trying to learn these wheelies. You know, that's another thing too. As you're learning the balance point on this bike, and this bike is easier. I mean, this bike is a lot easier for me to get up. Especially if I'm having to do it multiple times in a ride out. Some guys can, obviously you've seen the wheelie kids, they can pull up that front wheel and go as long as they want. They can go 6 city blocks and never put that wheel down. I've seen guys without even a front wheel. I'm not even close to that yet. I'm getting a lot better, but you have to learn that control. You got to learn that balance point. And this bike definitely helps me learn that balance point. Even the seat they put on this bike, it's a very grippy seat. As I'm learning, I'm probably gripping my hands too tight. I'm probably gripping my seat too tight, but it is nice when this seat is nice to grip. You know, you don't slide off it easy. And when you're at that balance point, you're up there pretty high. It's nice to have a seat that you don't have to worry about trying to cup with your butt cheeks. This seat just lets you sit on it and concentrate on pedaling. There's just a lot of cool things, the geometry of this bike. Like I keep saying, for a smaller rider, but I have fit this bike to some bigger riders, bigger than me, with shorter legs. So with a 27.5, you're not quite off the ground as far. And so when you're finding that balance point, sometimes you fall off the back. I've seen a lot of people be able to catch themselves with their back foot. Rather than coming off all the way and stopping their wheelie, they're just kind of catching themselves with their back foot and can almost push this bike back into the wheelie point again. So there's a lot of advantages to a 27.5. Of course, we all talk about wheelies, but endos. So endos is another cool trick. This bike just seems to endo a lot better. Once again, you have a lot less rotational mass. You have a lot less weight. And just that few pounds of less weight definitely helps me get on this bike and stay on that front wheel longer. I just feel a lot more control in this bike. I do want a 29-inch single speed bike. It's coming. This is a great learning tool. And it also is a good excuse to buy a second bike, a buddy bike. If you're trying to get your son, your daughter, your wife, some smaller family member that you have or a friend into big wheel BMX, they're pretty cumbersome. When you first get on one of those things, there's a lot of bike there. There's a lot of bike to throw around. This bike is easy to ride. It's easy to ride for multiple people. And some people that might not have that power to push a one gear, you've got a gear range. You've got a 10-speed in the back. It's an 1132 cassette and a 33 up front. It shifts gears really good. So the the Micro Shift XLE derailleur and the shifter from Micro Shift, the SL shifter, really work good. There's no guessing. It's a good textile feel. When you push this gear, it engages and you know it's there. So it's a really cool bike, mid-bottom bracket, so it comes with 2 tough bearings that are pressed into it. They're robust bearings. And one really important thing too is, a lot of the bikes are just coming with like a rear caliper brake. That's good enough. Believe me, those brakes are good. And people that are on control really like that one rear caliper brake. This bike is coming with Tektro mechanical disc brakes. These mechanical disc brakes work fantastic. There's a lot of modulation in this cable and they stop really well. So when you're up on that back wheel and you're just trying to feather this brake, this cable operated brake system works really good. So don't think you've got to upgrade to hydros right away. I've got a hydro brakes on multiple bikes I own. I do own a bike shop so I can get parts at cost. These brakes work so good, I'm not changing them. I'm staying with a stock brake on here. I like the way they work. They just feel good. SE has really dialed this bike in for a very fun, very agile, very rideable, and definitely one of those bikes that you can train yourself again on how to do wheelies, how to do flatland, how to do endos. The bigger bikes are cumbersome, and if you can't get to that balance point, it's hard to learn wheelies. You're struggling, you're pulling up on this thing so hard. And just a different set of handlebars or a different seat height, I mean, all that stuff probably helps a little bit, but in the end, you've got to learn the balance point before you can learn wheelies. So to learn the balance point, you've got to get to the balance point. And the Savage Flyer does that. It's also a good excuse to buy a second bike. Buy a bike for a family member to help them see, the love of BMX. A lot of really cool things with the Savage Flyer. I actually have a camera, so I'm going to try to set up and do a couple wheelies for you guys, just so you can see how easier it is for me to wheelie this than it is my Fast Ripper. And believe me, I'm not giving up on my Fast Ripper. I love that bike. If you guys have seen the smile on my face the day I broke that thing out of the box. And this is coming from a guy who owns a bike shop, so I got a lot of bikes. I see new bike day quite often in the shop, and that was a very special day for me when all of a sudden I had a big wheel BMX bike of my own to start the SE Bike Life journey on. And now this has come out, the Savage Flyer. This is going to be my go-to bike for a while until I get it down pat. And it's a big enough bike that an adult can ride this very comfortably. With the gears, you can work on your gear ratios. I mean, you can get across town. You can use this bike multiple purposes. And it's a bike that you don't have to upgrade. It looks hot. It's got a lot of hot parts on it. Everything just seems to work really good. So they have nailed it with the Savage Flyer. Nice job, SE. This is a really cool bike, and I see a lot of people, gaining skills because of this bike. So if you're struggling, if you were tired of sitting on the sidelines and just watching everybody else do wheelies, do endos, you know, do some cool flatland, think about getting one of these Savage Flyers, and you'll be surprised how your learning curve all of a sudden shoots up. It has with me. Even though I own a bike shop, and I've said that 5 times, that doesn't mean I get to go ride bikes all the time. I'm probably ride bikes less now that I own a bike shop than when I did when I had a corporate 40-hour-a-week job. I can tell you for sure I ride bikes a lot less. I don't have time to go out and practice wheelies. I ride wheelies during a ride out. And this is the bike I'm gonna do it on for a while until I can get proficient at it the way I want to. You know, I talk to a lot of guys all the time that talk about, hey, I could walk a wheelie for a block. I can walk a wheelie, you know, I'm so good at walking wheelies. And then you actually get them on a BMX bike and they can't walk a wheelie. But a lot of people are reliving their glory days. Bikes have changed, you know, the old 20-inch bikes that you could kind of manhandle and keep at that wheelie like here at speed is different than nowadays. You know, these bikes, you've got to be at the wheelie point, and it's not all about speed, it's about control. So there's 2 different style wheelies, the chasing the wheelie and the balance point wheelie. And then of course, some guys are so good at, you know, mixing it up and several tricks that go with wheelies. So it's a really cool bike because it's just a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, a little bit agile, and it's definitely Savage. More to come on the Savage Flyer, but before the sun sets, I'm gonna see if I can set up a camera and try to film myself doing a couple of wheelies. So stick around for Bicycle Rider YouTube, stick around for more on the Savage Flyer, and if you have any questions, you know, call me at Biloxi Bicycle Works. I'd be glad to, you know, answer any questions on this bike because I actually ride this bike, and I would love to share the knowledge on it. So Bart from Bicycle Rider YouTube, more on the Savage Flyer. Thank you. Stick with me for a second. I'm gonna do my best at trying to film myself. Anyway, really hot, really good opinion of the Savage Flyer. Think about this bike for your next SE bike, for your next ride out, for learning, for playing around in a park and checking to see if you like this kind of stuff. Anyway, Bart from Bicycle Rider YouTube. Stick around, a lot more on the Savage Flyer. As you can see, it's a lot easier for me to pull a wheelie and to walk this bike up, being a 27.5 inch, a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. This bike is making a world of difference in my wheelies. And I think people who find that balance point can learn to transfer that balance point to any bike they want to ride. The key is hitting that balance point and learning it. And if you're struggling to get the front wheel to that balance point because you have to yank so hard or pedal so hard to get there as someone trying to learn, it makes it really difficult. The brakes on this bike definitely help. Having front and rear mechanical disc brakes that work very well is a big plus. They've priced this bike at $1,000 bucks, 999 bucks. To me, that's definitely a good price for all you get. This is a high quality riding bike that is an absolute blast to ride and also functional. So think about the Savage Flyer if you're looking for that bike, so you don't have to sit on the bleachers during these Bike Life ride outs, and you can actually get out there and ride a wheelie with everybody. If you can play around on your front wheel by endoing it a little bit, and also just keeping up. You know, it's hard to find the right gear, and when you have multiple gears to play with, it lets you fine tune that, so eventually you can ride a single speed true BMX bike. So anyway, Savage Flyer, it's an awesome bike, and it definitely is one that's a little bit easier to control, a little bit easier to learn on. Bicycle Rider YouTube, over and out for now.